Yeah, so do we have a motion to approve the agenda? I'll second that. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Agenda is approved. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda. There's minutes in there. It's literally just approved.
All right, sure, yes.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved. All right, so we are on to the, you started. So we're on to the policy and planning portion of things. So we have the equity policy first. Certainly don't need to introduce it to the same detail as the last time. We had some thoughts about how you wanted to present it. We've had a chance to discuss it between more about it. I think it's useful to visit this from the two of us, but those who may be watching to have a sense of what this is and why it is. Process it.
First of all, I wanted to introduce one of the members of my team, Dr. Diaz. She serves as our Title IX person for the district, and she happens to be in my office. I'm really blessed to have her experience. So we, first of all, let me just say that we have an equity advisory council that we convened in December, and we're really proud of that. The equity advisory council includes lots of people from the community, from universities, parents, we have some students, we have some central office folks that have been here actually having support network, and some administrators and teachers, including the president and Jeremy Simpson. So we've all been working together since December, meeting monthly. We have not missed a meeting. And a couple of things that they worked on that we're really proud of. One of them is helping us create the equity framework, which is mentioned here. They provided a lot of input. We presented them with several options, and they not only selected one, but provided a lot of input that goes into creating and thinking about the equity framework for the district ongoing. They also provided lots and lots of feedback on this policy. We spent a lot of time in our session, but also we did an open Google Doc where they were able to provide substantial feedback. And we used a lot of that feedback. In fact, most of it to advise this policy. One of the things that they were very important to them was this idea of making the policy digestible by everyone. And trying to really, in some places you can't avoid it when it comes to definitions, for example, but really trying to make it a document that parents can get into, students can get into, the public can get into, understand, and it makes sense. And then we also spent a lot of time expanding. So we look at the current policy. This is the current policy here through 2017, and there was a substantial difference in terms of content in the new policy, particularly in C, which is the definition section, and D, the guidelines and implementation strategies. We actually split that into two, so that's why we have a D and D.1. So that, because we thought there were two different boxes there, and we wanted to separate it so that it made a little bit more sense. And then we included quite a bit of content, but also made it very clear that this is the policy. So the really big lift is going to be the regulation, which we have not necessarily always done a good job with. We create a lot of policies within right? So that's going to be the work. They're going to have a big chunk of a piece of that work on the regulation. A big push has been to get this before you, to get this very, very interesting. That's what we appreciate. And we didn't keep this, go through for our 2023 school year. We want to start the school year off with this policy in place. We've already started doing a lot of the work on professional development and offering a lot of the planning for next year is based on implementing this. So I've worked on leadership teams, expanding our framework, professional development more often next year. This all all based on this policy, really beginning to work up those regulations without actually working on them. We also recognize this work is really urgent, and it can't wait any longer. It started in 2017, and the office was paused for a while. We relaunched this July, and just going to get more. But it's important to include as many stakeholders as possible. I'll stop there. I don't want to add anything.
I mean, my only thing is, I really, anything that we can do to help with the regulation and move forward, because I always have concerns about policies just remaining policies, right? And even if we don't pull the regulation away, but strategic planning or some sort of like individual plan for schools. And I say individual, I know it sounds like a lot to maybe do 40, little individual strategic plans, but all schools have different cultures, different families, different units. And so just thinking about how implementing annual plans for school might be beneficial. So again, nothing with the policy, but just like how do we move that forward? I would love to see, this is amazing and it has beautiful words, and I want to see it more implemented than it actually be a policy. So great work.
To follow up on that, do you have a sense, and I know that the big dilemma we always face with a lot of these policies, especially ones that are mission critical, is the balance between what goes in the policy and what goes in the regulations. And I'm someone where we can a little more towards a bit more regulations and policies. Sausage making is clear, which I think is a lot, I think. So I really know a lot of my questions are comments about that. How do you close the accountability? How do you close the working on that? So I really appreciate
Absolutely, that was one of the biggest tensions. I'm big on policy, I like systems and processes. So what was hard for me was holding back. Holding back and waiting for the regulations. But I love you kind of caught some things that you look very closely in this policy. There may be some things in it people might say it was regulation, but I just feel like you can't write really good regulations if you don't have a very clear detailed policy. Right? Because it's not like we have a whole department and all they do is write regulations. We are the people who will be writing these regulations. And when you bring in parents, you bring in the community, it's more of a lift because you also have to keep them, that's some missing information they may not have because they're not doing it every day. So we wanted to make the policy as detailed as possible so that, because we've actually already, like I said, started kind of writing the policy already. We started doing some of the work, the regulations already, sort of, in terms of just had a meeting together on PD. We kind of convened and worked together. One of the things that I've been pushing is this idea of, my focus needs to be really creating, if we say we believe in equity, how do we achieve that? So culture responsive education is a great pathway towards achieving equity. And that's some work we started a long time ago and it just went away. And if we're saying we're going to be culture responsive, that means we all have to. And if we all agree with that, then that means whatever we're doing in our departments needs to really converge and move towards that, right? So part of this group that we created is really part of this regulations to kind of be, as a school, not only what does the school do, but how do we support the schools? Part of that regulations has to be, okay, this is what we want you to do, and here's how we're going to support you to make that happen.
And I don't know how education regulations, so I've done a lot of like public health regulations where once we put work on those pieces of paper and they get voted in legislation, we can't, it takes 3, 4, or 5 years to make changes. So I agree that we can kind of clear, but also thinking about when we're thinking about those regulations, other processes that are more manageable and can be changed more often. It's important to think about because you might encounter a school culture that just might not be able to fully implement some of those regulations. I know you can think about all these things, but just in case.
I think, especially because this is so, take it seriously, we should take it seriously. should. It's system wide.
Absolutely.
It's everywhere, much like the next policy. Like that. So, in order to do that, all the policy rates have to be it's not such a learning so we want to be responsible to systems. Part of why I was pushing companies and systems processes and stuff a little bit more into the policies because we as a board have written too many very well intentioned policies like the earlier version of that sound nice, but then when it's really so that's why this one is very good. This, I hope it puts everyone in perspective. So, that's and yeah, we are very much committed to this work. So as you guys come up with draft regulations, it's not sort of either pass or pass to help, but I think we'd like to see that time comes. But it should happen. Because the board is an ally in this. This is the sort of work the board is in progress. It's not running positions.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm a scientist at heart. I like alignment. Um, we don't foresee doing this without the board. The same process. We're going to be sent. You don't have to look at it. We're going to be sending it to you. Actually, hope someone from the board will join the Equity Advisory Council. I think that's going to be really important because it sends a signal. I think people really now realize that we're for real because we never cancel, and we're always there. Even if it's just a few people to show up or everybody who shows up. Because you really wanted to make it clear because people had to, people live in Burn and Jade, everybody has their history. And so I think they were kind of trying to see if this was actually going to happen. And would it be meaningful? So when we started giving some of these tasks, and they started seeing that it was actually, we were real, it was turning into actual concrete work, and people were very excited about it. And so I think also including someone from the board as part of that Equity Advisory Council, even if they can't show up every single time, will help to continue that alignment. But the input from the board is going to be very important. I think when we do, this was the efforts here for the original policy were not bad at all. I think the issue is that sometimes there's so much transition that when you see a document like this, you start to ask questions. What we try to do with this updated policy is try to make it so that if I win the lottery, she wins the lottery, and we go off into the sunset, people will understand what we mean when we say X, Y, and Z, and they can continue to work. And so I think part of that is definitely keeping the board involved in everything we do, keeping our superintendent involved in everything we do. We all have to have the same language and understand what the purpose of this is, so we can support each other. That's really important. You can't just live in the equity office. As a matter of fact, I mean, I think the goal is to not have an equity office. That's really the goal. But for now, really trying to make sure we're as inclusive as possible, and especially bringing students in. So that's why we're excited, because we do have students who show up. They don't all come at the same time. But having their voice in this work is super important because they bring their own perspective to this. I'm kind of tired of talking about what's good for kids without having kids in the room. So I think that's really helpful to have them here and give their perspective. And they've been super honest and open with their conversations and sharing, but extremely professional and very grateful that you're calling them to the table.
So one more question. Do you, given the potential scope of that, something like this circumstance, that don't necessarily do you anticipate needing to staff up or in their office?
Yes, we need to do that today.
So are you talking to those who you need to talk to budget in order to make that, or write grants or
So to be fair, yes, to be fair, I have to say this. We've gotten so much support. Because remember, I came on in July, and by October 17th, I had 3 people. And I think that has been a real signal that this work is real. That has not been my experience. I'll explain to you that way. When I was ED of high school reform, I was ED of high school reform, and I had a secretary who I shared with someone else. I had no staff. So I think for me, it's signaling that people really take this work seriously. For that to happen that quickly, but we do need more staff. Just with the Title IX work, now that we have a Title IX process, guidelines, structures, and it has been communicated to schools, they're starting to get it. So now we're starting to get a lot of requests, and this beautiful young lady, talented young lady, is the sole person who's doing the investigations, giving out the reports, and doing everything. So just even in that segment of the office, we need another person. But to do this work and do it well, we're gonna need people, but I think what we need first is the policy. Because the policy kind of dictates, I have a little, little trick up my sleeve. The policy dictates what we need. Once the policy is approved, then we can start to advocate for money, grants, and opportunities to get more staff. But it has to be for what? What is the purpose of that staff? And I think this kind of tells the story about why we need certain pieces. Just professional development alone is huge. When we think about the work we do, because we're not talking about just certain groups, we're talking about the entire district in many cases, right? So definitely we'll have to scale up eventually. But right now we're excited about the fact that we do have a very strong team that's very talented. And as the work moves forward, I would hope that we will be able to increase that part of as we're looking at grants. A lot of the grants we're looking at are for not only funding for professional development, but also funding to help bring on some additional staff that we might need. So we'll be spending some time doing that. But we have to prove ourselves first, because a lot of our funders were paused. So we wanted to show them that the work is happening before we start asking them to give us additional monies for those things.
Do you have timeline for the regulations?
By this time next year. By this time next year. That's the first thing we do. But we'd like to get started, like I said, we've already started. We just don't have anything necessarily on paper, but we've already started. But we'd like to start as soon as this gets passed. So the goal is to start, in June, and then by this time next year, we have to complete it. But we also want to make sure we have different stakeholders that are going to do that. We don't want to go and cause anybody ourselves.
I know it's one of the best things about the earlier iteration of the policy was good. So it was largely a board, mostly a board driven. That's part of the way to sort of get down into the system itself. Are we ready to? So do we have a motion to pass the equity policy?
Motion to or send the equity policy to the board.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. It goes for a first read tomorrow night. It's on the agenda.
Sorry, hurry on there.
Excellent. So I'll second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much for spending your whole team.
We should.
Actually, it would be really worthwhile just to put out a press release of some sort. We haven't passed it yet. I'll discuss that tomorrow night. I think it would be worthwhile. Yeah, so I don't know if your office wants to, if you have somebody you want to frame it or something like that.
I took a picture of her presenting and sent it to our press office.
I can't hold on here.
James, are you kidding me?
I
know,
can't
sign
sign
No,
anything.
I'm sorry.
No, that's kidding.
Do we have a signed photo release for you?
I'm sorry, that was really short.
We have to have a specific pose.
Exactly. Are you kidding me? I have a picture to send you. Trust me.
Hence it.
I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna stay with you.
Thank you so much.
So, next and not quite last, but next on our agenda is the multi-tiered system. supports. Thank you. So, we're bringing that close.
Yeah, so Julie McFarlane, Executive Director of Student Support, and I have with me Nick Coronado, who's the MTSS coordinator. So Nick and I have been working very closely together on, creating and writing this policy out with a team of people. So we have developed a leadership team, MTSS leadership team for the district. And we have included basically a representative from each of our departments in central office to start. And that was something that we never really had, so it was nice to get everyone in, the same room. The first thing we did was obviously look at the previous policy, which was developed in 2017. When we came together, we all kind of felt like it really needed to be revamped. It seemed to read more of like the path to special ed, when MTSS should really be more of the preventative measure. So having all those steers in place before you're getting to that stage. So we really felt like we needed to go through it, and so we really kind of took it right from the beginning. And our basic purpose is basically, for school improvement, so that we can support, school, community, the whole child, academically, social, emotionally. So it was really, we wanted to make sure that it read that every child gets what they need.
I thought that was very well put. The only piece that I guess I would draw a little bit of attention to in terms of growth from the 2017 policy to this one is that, there's a much more exhaustive list of definitions to the point where we questioned, like, is this too many definitions? But also clarity matters, right? And it is much more explicit on the tier 1 supports that are like mission critical for the MTSS like framework to function. And so there's a little bit more explicit language around that, some language around what that could look like. But as Julie mentioned earlier, that will also get fleshed out in more depth in the regulations portion of
We
this
also,
process.
one thing I left out was that we've also worked really closely with West Bay Collaborative, so they contract the ride. So we're working with someone from West Bay who works with Bridge RI, so we're kind of going with that same model, the MTSS. So we've been following the 5 components, so you'll see the 5 components throughout the policy.
Julie, I'm also going to lovingly nudge you just to talk about the stakeholder feedback process that you went through.
So we did, thank you. So as far as stakeholder feedback, we did go out to schools. So we went out to 6 different schools. So represented elementary, middle, and high. We did present at the Equity Advisory Council. And then I also held a separate Zoom just because we ran out of time. So we did have someone from the community that came on and gave some feedback. We met with Family Engagement Office. We also met, I held hours with the social workers and psychologists in the district.
That's about right.
Parents?
There were parents, some parents at the Equity Advisory Committee.
And that was who you spoke to in the separate
Yeah,
Zoom.
there was it was a community member that came to the separate Zoom.
Can you explain again what you just said earlier about how MTSS is not about special education? And the reason why I asked that is because when we think about equity, I have 2 children who are in special education, but one of them was held in the tier 1 for too long because they didn't want to push them into special education, and it was unfair for him. And so you're again putting parents in a position where it's unequitable for us to be able to get the same supports that, like, if you would have gotten the supports that you needed in kindergarten when you showed the issues, you wouldn't have been struggling in 2nd grade, right? And even 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, there was still no access to these resources. So he was never moved to tier 2 or tier 3 because it's too hard to get him, whole child.
Right.
So can you explain that?
Yeah, I think with the tiered system, we would go through like a lot. There's screeners. So as the regulations come out, there will be like a more specific, sorry, I'm not gonna have the right word, but like a list of, what you need to do in tier 1, what needs to happen in tier 2, tier 3. So these are things that I think that we also need to monitor. So I don't think that our system at this point has ever really been monitored as well. So having like our team working with these MTSS teams. Also, a lot of schools do a lot of different things, so it's also to like streamline the process so that we do have like a tier 1 team, but then we also have that student support team so that they are tracking students who need more support. When they're at that tier 2, tier 3 level, are they getting that? So, we're also looking further down the line. We just had an RFP, closed an RFP for a data platform. So that will also give us like live information on the student, so we can see that there's an students who are falling behind or that need more support. And that would support that as well.
I was just going to also validate, so I echo 100% and also just validate that that's a very real concern.
A lot of our parents are going through that.
Yeah. And like, you don't want, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No,
Go ahead.
I interrupted you.
No, just the point being, right? Like I hear the concern being like, there's some shifts that are happening here, but I don't want those to get in the way
Right.
of my child getting the support that they need, right? And as Julie mentioned, right now we're kind of in the place where we don't have a structure at all. And then so students are getting to a place where either schools or special ed students are over-identified, which is also not equitable, or we're getting to a point where a young person needs services and the special educators, school psychologists are asking, well, what interventions have been put in place to show that this young person needs specialized services? And schools aren't able to answer that question, right? And so the framework and the structure, hopefully, is going to facilitate more of that process so that we don't have young people stuck in the system.
So that we also, I'm sorry,
No.
this is I also think that this is important because your experience as a parent with your child might be different in a different school. And that shouldn't be the case, right?
Correct.
So we have good processes and good systems, and I'm excited about this because I feel like that's where we're going, right?
Yes.
So that no matter what school you go to, there's a process. So you don't want to push kids into special education too quickly without all those checks and balances, but at the same time, you want to address the needs of kids who need them, right? To address the immediately. And right now, every school, they're doing really, the best they can, but it's different, right? The experience is different because of, I think because we don't have this more figured out system. So I think it's going to be really exciting to really create those systems and processes and then train people. And then I think the biggest thing that Julie said was the monitoring.
Yes.
That is the part that we fall short of,
Yeah.
to make sure that we're taking the temperature and seeing what's happening in schools. Are they following the process? And are we following the process not only within schools, but across the district? So that you're getting the same experiences, and then that's what. Right, so
Just so you know, people are gonna say that there is a process because every time that I would show up to the school and say there's something wrong, they would test him, they do the stars, and they'd be like, he went up 21 points. Yay, everything is perfect. And so that would be like the monitoring that would be done, that if he went up in the stars point because that day, and I got my child psychologically tested, turned out he had dyslexia, turned out he had a lot of other issues. When I showed up to the school and mandated with my report, a teacher popped out a quiz that he did where his words were completely mirror image. But nobody had shown that to him. Right? And now he's in second grade.
Right.
He was signed out of speech in kindergarten because he scored an 80 and passing was 79. And so those things, I know that I'm not the only one that's going through that.
I'm sure you're
And
not.
so I just want to make sure that as we create this system and we put it in place, and that's why my first question to you guys was, are we moving this into regulation, right?
Yeah.
So, like, are we holding schools accountable for this? Because I don't have the time. I know parents don't have the time to drop off our kids. We
The
think
burden
they're
shouldn't fall
safe,
on them.
Absolutely.
but it's falling on us a lot.
Right.
And we want to shift a little bit more to trust our system
Right.
that it's going to support our kids the way it needs to support them.
If
And-
it's a true system.
It is. And to your point, we were actually just talking about this a couple of hours ago, right? We have been doing some like fidelity inventories at schools, and we asked them about teaming. And so we had some data points that were facilitated, meaning I went out to a school, I sat down with the team, and we had that conversation together. And we had some data points where a self-assessment was sent to schools, and they did that independently. And there was a pretty stark difference around the question of, do you have X team in place? And for them, they're like, yeah, of course we do. Schools have a million teams. And so, yes, schools are going to say that they have a process because they probably do. Is it a good process? Or is it the process that this is outlining? Probably not. And I think that is the value here, where this can hopefully really give some new power, some new structure and reinforcement to what I hear you naming the need is here.
Just to jump in, what I really love about this new construct, the Bridge RI does a great job like giving training resource support too, which is important. But a lot of times when the old RTI systems fail, it's because you're loading it through like too many people, like too few people in the building. It always end up being special ed, the coach, whoever, and then they can never do the follow-up. This like makes everyone own it, particularly for tier one. So I think it's just a vast improvement in structure. So I think it's a really good thing for district.
One thing that I don't, listened to really all the comments, questions, margins, you guys did a great job of responding to that.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments.
I left
I'm
home
very much,
today.
That's
I'm
okay.
very much not an expert in that, so it was hard for me to sort of figure out what I asked, so I appreciate you guys giving me the comments and questions.
Yeah,
I respect that, I appreciate that. So one question I would want to ask, it's sort of a two-part question, but I did have a few things in the margins about this. It has to do with reporting. I know you're building a sort of internal system of learning to see what's happening with the system and improve it as it goes along. I guess I just also want to make sure it's in the policy a little bit, but then maybe also right, reporting out in a more public kind of way as well, because I think this is the educator. MTSS is tremendously mission critical and important to how equity works like on the ground, right? And how everything works on the ground. And yet I would guess 99% of parents have never heard of it and would struggle to understand policy as written, which is not a criticism of policy. So part of what I'd like us together to try and do in the coming years is put the regs together, put this on the ground, is to find ways of communicating this to parents and to the board. Whether that's through a report out or something more decentralized or something. Because the question I almost want to ask you is, if a parent said, okay, so how is my kid's education going to be different 5 years from now if this works the way it's supposed to work? I'm not sure how you're going to answer that question. If it's not a fair question. We're in this sort of strange disjuncture in which this is incredibly important what we're about to do with the vast majority of people in the city. And one doesn't realize what an accomplishment it actually is when it's passed. So, yeah.
you'd be surprised because the challenge is real. So
Yeah.
you'd be surprised.
It's drawing the connection.
Yeah, like the universal screening, like the fact that you're like they have the 3 and 4 year old screening, right? Yay, that's great. But the fact that your child's going to come into the school and there's going to be a universal screening and this child is going to be placed and identified, like, I feel like that's a step forward just if they do universal
No, I agree.
screening, So you realize how amazing this is. The one thing that I feel is missing, and it could be policy, it could be regulation, it could be an extra document, it really doesn't matter, but I would love for you to focus on is the role of the parent. So here's something important. I just said we're super busy, that's true. But I have another child who's autistic.
Mhm.
He did not make it to the Providence school system, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm grateful. He got into a charter from kindergarten. When he was in kindergarten, the teacher said, "Oh, have you ever heard about 1, 2, 3 magic?" And I said, "What's that? You know what it is? Anybody? Nope. Okay. So you just count 1, 2, 3, and the child stops the behavior. right? So I said, all right, I'll try it. That seems silly. They made me watch a video and I was like, that's silly. If I count one, but if I get to two, my child's heart breaks. That's like the worst thing I could do to him, to count to two, like both of them. And so the reason why I tell that story is because right now, the way my family operates with the school and when he was in ABA, his ABA center is we were a triangle. Whatever he learned at school, we were doing at home and he was doing at ABA. And so he has been able to have amazing progress because of the integration between family, school, and his third system. And so I know it's not possible with every family. I know we have Spanish speaking family. I know culturally, some families don't even know to talk to teachers. They're scared, this and that. But I think if we can have something to help to tell parents, hey, it's okay for you to talk to your teacher. Hey, it's okay. And if, I don't know if you guys were here in 2018 when the work to rule issue happened and we lost the ability to talk to our teachers. I was the most upset parent at Reservoir Avenue School.
Yeah.
Because I lost my ability to see the teacher at the in the morning. We used to drop off the kids in the school playground and the teacher was there. We lost that. And then came the pandemic. So I have made it intentional to be present. Some parents don't know to do that. They're scared. They don't speak the language. They need a translator every single time. Right? So I think this is amazing. I'm really, really excited about it. I hope that it really moves into the direction that this is great. And let's think about how we can bring families into it. I know there's a number 5.
Yeah.
But I didn't see anything else but that there's a number 5. So, yeah.
What I can note to that particular concern is two things, and maybe Julie has some thoughts as well. Especially in regard to tier 1, but also in regard to the other tiers. The specific tool that we've been using to kind of inventory best practice around this with school sites has a specific indicator for family engagement that exists on its own, but also exists in relation to all the other pieces. So for example, if does a school have school-wide expectations? Part of that is yes or no, but part of that is also, were those expectations developed in partnership with students and families in the community? And if the answer to that is no, then that is rated differently. The other piece is this is part of a broader effort, right? And I think, so the last policy that I remember specific to family engagement, I think was passed almost a decade ago, right? And there's a difference, at least for me, between family, parent, caretaker involvement, family engagement, and family leadership. And the way in which we talk about those things really drives all of the practical pieces, right? Which is all just to say, 100% agree in regard to this policy, but I would also like for that conversation to be part of our broader way of work.
And you're right. I'm not gonna lie. I've been in every single PTO. Right now, I'm the chair of my current PTO. Right? And so that gives me a little bit more leverage, right? Because I have access to the principal in a different way.
Yeah.
You're right. But it's still, I also speak English. I have an education. It's just, I'm advanced compared to other families in my school.
Yeah.
And so that's not equitable. It's not fair because I know who to scream at to, when my 3-year-old was diagnosed with autism, I automatically contacted here and I said, because the screener here would refuse to screen him. She said that he was too small when I came and he was 3. So I went and I got professional too. And I said, he has autism, let's do it. I got it. He was actually at Ford's. They got him into Ford's. 2 years he did at Ford's. But I knew the right people. I yelled at the right people. I said, help my kid to the right people.
Even you to yell.
Exactly. I sent 100 emails, and not everybody knows to do that. So other moms just keep their kids until they're 5.
Yes.
Now they're severely behind and they're struggling. Thank you for all you do.
We appreciate all of your input. This is great feedback.
This is exciting because I felt this building for a long
Yeah,
time.
it's a long time.
I really appreciate it. getting it to us so that we can send it on its way and hopefully begin to change lives. So do we have a motion?
Motion.
I will second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so it passes. So for both policies, as I understand it, I'll be sure I can clarify this. But my understanding is both go on for first read.
They're adopted for first read tomorrow, and they're on the consent agenda. They'll be back for a second read the following month. Then they become enacted.
And then is there?
No, we just kind
Second read, it becomes act, once they pass the second read.
it's just a first glance for those who are not on the committee and for the public. So it's because these are, and then we already discussed this via email, but because these are both, using this phrase, but if it's mission critical, potentially transformative. I do think it's really valuable to have a representative from each of the teams to try and explain that as best we can. But it's that, I don't know if that's possible.
I'll be there tomorrow.
Because I think what will happen probably is we go through tomorrow night's agenda to get some policy committee reports. And at that point, I'm thinking maybe call each of you up to briefly explain what those are, because otherwise we have to figure the terms, but excise them from the consent agenda, separate them in order for the ones. So that's just to describe it, which doesn't require that. Super brief, doesn't have to be some sort of
Don't bring a problem.
discussion. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, just, yeah. Because this, I wanted to try and this is like a drama I've been trying to keep a little bit more recently, and I wish I'd done before, and I'm guilty of it too. So that we all become very comfortable with technology that we use, which not only often is something that the general public expects, but the school board myself. So we're trying to be as clear as we can, so people know that we're doing really important good work. I'm going to be leaving the school board shortly, and I'm going to leave feeling really proud that I played a very small role.
Stop saying that.
And,
Stop saying that.
and it's
Yeah.
oh, it's
I only know
Jimmy,
one here.
oh, that's true. Yeah, I guess that's right. Yeah.
But we hope to stay for a while.
But I want people to know that we're doing good stuff, because there's too much negative or just absence of positive about what's happening in the district, and I think we all know there are things we could be doing a lot better, but geez, these are two major accomplishments.
We are presenting this week at a conference, just so you know, so maybe that we're working with Ride and Bridge RI, and so that will go, so that's a little public, just so you know, like a little step towards, there's gonna be other districts there and everything, so we're presenting on Thursday.
Readiness, inclusion, improvement. Use those words because that's where we're heading.
That's right.
Would it be helpful for us to have copies again? It's okay to do that, or do you do that?
Copies of the policy.
We can make a
I think it's usually included in.
It's inside of the,
Okay.
unless it changed from the draft that they
I haven't
gave us.
touched it.
Okay.
Well, we
It's
do
in
it.
there.
We do need, I sent it on that email, we'll go to you tomorrow morning, but we do need a version without the draft.
I just-
Watermarks on it.
I just shared it, so mine's up, but it's in Google, so can you
Yes, take care of it.
Okay, so do you want me to share it? I shared it with you, but.
Yeah.
He'll share, you can share it with him and he'll share it with me.
Okay, so I just took the draft off of it.
Awesome, thank you.
We'll do the same. Do
Thank
you need the current, and do you just want the, okay, for tomorrow, will they all have the current, they'll have a comparative, the current versus?
Can we?
If, I can make copies for them, because most of them are not gonna log on to their computer.
Okay. All right, so I always.
You do, but
I did both.
the majority does not, so I'll have copies, yes, I'll have both for them to
So
have.
we'll make sure we get that to you.
Yep.
And I'll make sure I get that to you. That'll be right.
So thanks both of you, thanks to both teams, thanks for your flexibility about the scheduling. That's got messed up. I appreciate you guys jumping in.
just want to say thank you to both of you and whoever else is not here because I'm going to be very frank with you. You know, I've been in the central office since 2008 and a lot of different experiences. It's always great when you know that they want to support you. And the way I sense that from you is I get a sense of urgency from both of you. The fact that you want to be at our meetings, sometimes it requires a date change when you communicate. So all of those, I'm just speaking for myself, but I think they
Yes, I would second that.
it gives encouragement, because we need encouragement too, this work is hard work, right? And so having school board members clearly have interest in the work, wanting to meet with us, for me, it's the feedback. I love it. Giving feedback shows that you actually read it and you actually thought about it and you're providing us with feedback that we can use. So I just want to say thank you, because it's not one-sided, it's a two-way relationship, and I have felt that throughout this whole process. I just want to say that to you.
Right.
For us.
When the school board is doing its right work, that's how this works. To open water. So we can continue to adjourn. Yes, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, roll credits. Don't really see it in any of us, do there?
I haven't watched SNL in years.
Oh, really? I watch it on YouTube. I don't know how to turn it off.
It's the color.
It's like, this thing's intense.
Done.